which also includes measures around discrimination, harassment, and other types of complaints. So my understanding is that the Safe Schools policy addresses this, and so therefore those are handled through the code of conduct of each school.
Sure, just quickly then, I'm wondering if in our minutes of the meeting that could be reflected, that parents have access to this through that particular mechanism, just so we're looping back with the people that did raise that comment or concern, so they know that that's the way, that it's not exclusionary in any way, and there are those mechanisms. Is that possible? Thank you.
Thank you. I see no further comments or questions on this topic. So all those in favor? Sorry. And that passes unanimously. Thank you very much, Executive Officer McFadden and Director Miller. Our next item is our student trustee reports. Trustee Schneider and Sahai.
Good evening, everyone. So yesterday we had an additional student senate meeting that was added on just to solidify our upcoming conference, as the meeting next week will be our student trustees election. So that's Tuesday here at the board office from 6 to 8. All of you guys are welcome to attend and listen to the speeches if you want to. So there will be speeches, questions asked by the Senate and Jovan and I ourselves, and then a vote on the night and announcement of the 2 successful candidates on the night. So it's going to be pretty exciting. But as for our conference, yesterday we were in Robinson, and we really got everything down with our workshops and panels. Some of the students have gotten really cool panelists for our panels and workshop activities, so it's looking good. And we actually also, the schedule is, we have the panels and workshops, the keynote speakers, a lunch, and then student voice report consultations. If you remember the first part of our year, we had a lot of discussion around putting together a student voice report and questions we want to ask the student body of Halton. So we've compiled 9 questions that we're going to consult students about and have qualitative and quantitative data, and then compile that into a report. So after the conference, that's sort of what's going to happen there. Yes. So if you go to hdsbstudentsenate.com/HYLS, all of the information about the conference is there. So it's on May 12th at Sheridan College in the Oakville campus. Closer to the date, we'll be giving out maps and everything of where everything is. And there's a bunch of different things. So the board meeting just before that date, Jovan and I can provide any trustees who would like to attend and observe with all the specific information.
Thank you. Do we have any comments or questions for our student trustees tonight? I don't see any takers at this point, but so thank you very much for your report. It's going to be an exciting time, and I'm sure there's some quality candidates, and it's going to be a very exciting election, and also be some sad moments for you because you know it's sort of the end of your term, but we'll celebrate those moments later. So, all right, our next item is notices of motion. Do we have any notices of motion tonight? Trustee Collard.
Yes, I would like to make notice of a motion to rescind motion M11-0216. This motion has been on our books for 5 years and was brought about to ensure that SEAC would have a voice in creating our budget. which is governed by Regulation 464-97. And the reason why this came about when it did was because in that particular year, SEAC had been left out of the loop for some reason that I don't know. Subsequent to that, they have been in the loop every year, as they should have been all along. And the reason why this motion becomes problematic is because it causes SEAC to have to pass the spec ed plan prior to us passing the budget, which makes it that staff has to prepare all of the changes to the spec ed plan prior to actually having the budget numbers. And so then if they need to make changes to the spec ed plan, SEAC has already voted on a plan that is then subsequently changed. So it becomes a vicious circle and really creates a lot of stress for staff and for SEAC members who feel very uncomfortable in passing a plan that is then subsequently changed. And so I would ask that we waive the rules and vote on this evening. And the reason why I ask that we waive the rules is because this year we're in the middle of our budget process, and if we don't rescind this evening, then they will continue on the path of having to approve the spec ed plan until we get to rescinding it. And that just is creating stress that doesn't need to be there, in my opinion.
We have a motion, well, right now it's about waiving the rules. So we have a motion to waive the rules to deal with this item tonight. Do we have any speakers to waiving the rules? Trustee Graves. Or Vice Chair Graves.
Oh, thanks. Yeah, and just trying to look at timelines, because I do like things to be seen by the public before we vote on them. So I know that SEAC will meet again before our next meeting, but I don't believe that an item on that agenda will be to approve the spec ed plan at that point. If memory serves me correctly, they can do it at their June meeting, the first meeting in June. So if that's the case, I would like to give the public some time, and certainly SEAC some time to weigh in on this issue. Yes, that's a question. When, right, if it was status quo, when would SEAC vote on the spec ed plan? Oh, and I know Superintendent Zonafeld isn't here.
Can Director Miller or Associate Director Bogue answer it? No?
SEAC is required to have 10 meetings per year. They often have additional meetings, and I think there have been additional meetings recently to deal with budget, the spec ed plan, I think, primarily. I'm not aware of whether a meeting is planned in June or not. They can, and in the past have had meetings in June, but I'm not sure what the plan is this year.
Thank you. Trustee Harvey-Hope, this is about waiving the rules. Trustee Harvey-Hope.
Part of the problem isn't so much that if we rescind this, that the plan will not continue to be developed. The problem with the motion that's on the order paper is that it's not so much that the plan has to be at a certain level of completion. It actually has to be voted on and then sent to the board to have seen it before we do our budget deliberation, pass the budget. The problem is this year, there may or may not be changes that may or may not change the spec ed plan, and it might be becoming a bouncing ball back and forth so that they can't pass it until we decide if they need to change it. And it goes back and forth and back and forth. And so no one is suggesting that SEAC doesn't bring the plan forward to the board. We are suggesting that the timing be loosened up a little, and I'm sure that we could sort out an ongoing process in the future. I do also know that the former director didn't like having an ongoing order paper motion and would rather have a planning document policy thing that says when things should come and how things fit together. So this would be another impetus to get to that point. I do not believe, after having monitored the SEAC communication the last few days, that they would have any argument against this. And I also believe, as Vice Chair of SEAC, Trustee Collard would have a handle on also what this is coming from. And I don't also think that it would stop the process. It would just take the pressure off and would allow for some dialogue.
We're talking about waiving the rules, not the actual motion.
No, I know. What I'm just saying is the timing. Otherwise, if you don't waive the rules, I don't know that it wouldn't hit our board package until the end of May, because then it would end up having to come.
I can answer the question. I know
Director
it's-
Miller.
SEAC is meeting June 7th, so I would imagine they have their, if Vice Chair Graves, are you sure that they would not be talking about spec ed at the May meeting? Spec ed plan, I mean.
That's my question.
Not budget, they're talking about spec ed plan.
Trustee Collard.
The next meeting, they will be discussing the budget. So if you see, they will not pass the plan in its current format because it's not complete. And they anticipate that there will be changes. And if they are in a position where they need to pass the plan and they don't meet to pass the plan until June 7th, we don't meet until June 13th, I think, after that. So this is getting really late. That means we don't get to pass our budget until June 13th. And in my conversations with every single SEAC member that was present last night, they're very much in favor of rescinding this motion, not the spirit of it, but the way that it handcuffs them.
Director Miller.
Thank you, Chair Amos. To all trustees, I can't obviously speak to about waiving the rules, but I can speak to my position and Superintendent Zonnefeld's position around this. We've had this conversation, and we support this rescinding of this because of the reasons stated tonight by trustees, the challenge, and SEAC as well. And rather think about this year, let's think about last year, where we really scrambled to be able to get the spec ed stuff and the spec ed plan passed prior to get everything done in order. And it was a scramble last year. It was a scramble the year before, and it was a scramble last year due to the impending cuts, which spec ed were going to have, but we, as we've said at previous meetings, we absorbed those centrally. So Trustee Collard mentioned the spirit. I would say that our staff absolutely supports the spirit of trying to lock and step these, but not to the point where it kind of handcuffs everybody and it's who's making the first move, and I think so. As I said, I can't really speak to waiving the rules. That's the purview of the trustees, but I can say that we would support this rescinding of that, Paul.
Thank you, Trustee Daniele.
Thank you.
This is on waiving the rules, correct? This isn't on the motion.
Yes, and I would support waiving the rules because I believe it actually protects us. Because I think a particularly savvy person would look at this and say that the spec ed plan has to come to the board before we can approve the budget. And a very savvy SEAC would say, well, we're never doing the spec ed plan, so you can never pass your budget. And so I would be in favor of waiving the rules to deal with this tonight because I do think the way this is written puts us in a possibly untenable situation.
Thank you. Vice Chair Graves.
I just want to be clear that I am supportive of the motion based on everything that I know at this point in time. What I'm questioning right now is the waiving of the rules to deal with something tonight. I was at SEAC last night. I don't remember there being a discussion at the table regarding this issue. I would have liked to have heard their input so that I would be better informed about what their viewpoint was. So again, I'm only one trustee. For sake of transparency, I do like things to be seen in the public before we vote on them. And there's nothing to stop us from, once it's seen in the public, it hits a board package on a Friday, we see it on the Wednesday, waiving the rules at that point. But to bring a motion and immediately waive the rules without any public input is, it's just uncomfortable for me. And again, I'm only one trustee of 11, so it doesn't stop any others from voting in the way that they wish to. It's just my own personal comfort level with doing that is in question.
Thank you. Trustee Collard.
It wasn't on the agenda for last night, but I spoke privately with members of SEAC, and I also had emails privately from members of SEAC that didn't go to the whole group, indicating their support.
Thank you. I have a question. If it was in the May 4th board meeting, would there be enough time with waiving the rules on the first reading? Would that allow more transparency and still give us enough time without tying our hands because the budget is still in the process? Mr. Miller.
I mean, through you, Chair Amos, to trustees, I think that would provide enough time because the budget would likely not be passed until June. And if the spec ed plan is not on the agenda for SEAC, but they'll be talking about budget, it does put them in a little bit of an awkward situation because the SEAC meeting is the night before May 3rd. So I guess, trying to figure out a way out of this that addresses all the situations is if it's put in as a notice. I don't know about the rules around this, but if SEAC was made aware that the rules would be waived the following evening and that it was going to be rescinded, I think that would help them in their conversation the night before. It's not a guarantee because it's not rescinded at that point, but if they were confident that it was going to be rescinded on May 4th, is it the 4th, the Wednesday? The Wednesday, and they had their deliberations on the Tuesday, I can't speak for SEAC, obviously, but that might satisfy them that they're able to have a good conversation around the budget and not worry about the spec ed plan. We could obviously never, the board could not assure them because everybody doesn't know how they'd vote, but if they could go in confident that that would happen, I think that might be sufficient. And then that gets the transparency out as well. So I don't know if that's a compromise, but.
Thank you. Trustee Collard.
It's a compromise, but it makes them wait 2 weeks for this, and it's been very stressful to be going through the potential cuts to some of the things that we provide in special education. If it's the will of trustees to wait 2 weeks, then we wait 2 weeks, but I don't really understand why we would wait 2 weeks when SEAC has been made aware that I'm bringing this. And they have indicated to me that they are in support of it.
Thank you. Trustee Harvey-Hope.
I'm just going to suggest a further compromise. We could make notice tonight of a special meeting to be 15 minutes before the budget meeting next week, and that would be before the 3rd, and it would, it's possible. I mean, it's very unusual, but I mean, if you really want not to have this to go through here, that is a possibility. A special meeting would be a one-item thing. It would be posted on the Friday, voted on the Wednesday, waive the rules. It would get out there in public mail. And it's on the same topic as the whole night anyway, so, same people would be in the room because I'm pretty sure most of the same people are going to be attending that budget workshop. It's a possibility. The other comment, though, is that this is sort of a procedural thing as far as us suggesting that it must come before we do something. So it's in this particular case, I mean, normally I would agree with you. I don't like waiving the rules. I don't like waiving the rules when something's walked on. But for appointments to SEAC, we often do it because nobody's going to argue. And I don't know that in this case it would be, there's no downside, because if anybody at the SEAC table thought that it shouldn't have been rescinded, they would just make sure it was presented to us on the normal status quo before. So they would be making a notice saying, please get it to us earlier. So I don't know that there's any downside. And I think it's a procedural thing of what we are comfortable with getting A before B or B before C. So it's not a content type of thing, nor is it something that they would likely consult on to that piece.
Thank you, Trustee Daniele.
Thank you. After hearing the comments, I have to say I would prefer to go with either what Trustee Harvey Hope or Superintendent Miller has stated. But I think the May 4th one is absolutely the better. And my only reasoning around this, and this is not meant as a criticism in any way, shape, or form, but had it been discussed at SEAC last night, I would feel much more comfortable. I am concerned about the public optics when it's been publicly stated. I've had private conversations and people have expressed this to me. Again, I think it protects the trustees on SEAC if we do not waive this tonight, if we do give a chance for input. That's my personal discomfort with this now. In terms, I think it does need to be done, and it needs to be done quickly, but I'm not sure the rules need to be waived tonight, given that the discussion was private last night, not public. I am worried about the optics of the transparency of that.
Thank you. Are there any other speakers on waiving the rules tonight? Seeing none. All those in favor of waiving the rules to deal with this tonight? Trustee L. Harrison? So that fails, so it will have to come back in the next board package. So can you forward your motion to Gail, please?
Yes, I will.
Thank you. Okay. So our next, is there any other notices of motion tonight? Seeing none? We are now up to our long-term accommodation plan, Superintendent Bierman, Report 16057 on page 12 of your board package. So this is coming back for May the 4th. We had a couple looks at it. Are there any questions or comments regarding the long-term accommodation plan? Trustee Collard.
I noted that in the report, it still refers to the primary gifted program, and I believe there had been a commitment to changing that.
Go ahead.
Through Chair Amos to Trustee Collard, there was a commitment. I don't know why it hasn't been. We'll look into that. Okay.
Thank you, Trustee L. Harrison.
Can you send Dom a note?
Thank you. Through you, Madam Chair, my question, I believe, is to Superintendent Cullen with respect to Morden and the overcapacity projections. And I believe you'd mentioned previously issues with respect to the servicing at Morden. I was wondering if you have any new comment on that. Thanks.
through the chair to Trustee Hunter, we don't have an update on that. We are looking into a number of the sites on that capacity. Our staff have been feeding that to the planning department to put this together. But based on our comments of last time, I wanted to look into specifically what had or had not been done to change that capacity, and I don't have that update at this point.
Thank you. Are there any other speakers to the LTAP tonight? Trustee Harvey Hope.
I just had a question of, I guess, process. Does the Halton Student Transportation Service provide a comment, feedback, whatever, to this long-term accommodation plan? The reason why I ask is that in particular things like the gifted placements, et cetera, being on the very far east side of Halton and realizing how hard it is to go more than a couple kilometers without coming to gridlock because of construction, I'm wondering whether or not the transportation side of things ever weighs into, by the way, this is getting harder and harder to do X or Y or have this program or placement where they are. And I'm wondering if there's a process for that.
Superintendent Bierman, do you know if HSTS provides feedback on the LTAP?
Through the chair, staff at HSTS would provide feedback as part of discussions at admin council with respect to programs. They don't specifically review the LTAP and provide feedback. That's not their role, but certainly there is ongoing dialogue with HSTS every time there are decisions that are being discussed or items being discussed at admin council.
Thank you. Are there any other speakers? So the LTAP will be coming back for approval on May the 4th. Thank you. So we're now up to information items. So our first information item is strategies for managing low English enrollments at Tom Thomson and Martin Street Public Schools for 2016-17. Associate Director Bogue, report 16069 on page 22 of your board package. Welcome, Associate Director Bogue. When you're ready.
Thanks, Madam Chair. This report is a follow-up report to the March 23rd report, specifically around low English enrollments in grade 1 at Martin Street and Tom Thomson. Following that March 23rd meeting, we did some consultation with families, the affected families, and we also talked to principals at those sites, and the themes are outlined in the report. Families were very much supportive of not triple grading, of maintaining those 2-grade combined classes. And they had a variety of reasons, but some themes are outlined in the report for you, and principals were quite supportive of that as well. The other piece I just thought would be worth mentioning is wherever we've got those small grade cohorts, we have an admin procedure that sort of directs the work of principals and superintendents when we've got grade cohorts of less than 6. So when it's around things like gender, the makeup of the class, those kinds of things. And so superintendents will work with principals, and they will be looking at and I don't want to talk about specifics because the numbers of students are very small, but if there was a class that was, 4 boys and 2 girls, there's that kind of imbalance, those kinds of things, they would work on strategies around how to manage that throughout the year. Similarly, for opportunities for kids to be outside of that small class cohort, that's on the principal's radars as well. So they'll look for opportunities during nutrition breaks. Phys ed class, tends to be one that's very easy to mix classes together and those kinds of things so that the kids have opportunities with other kids within the same grade in the school. So we have moved ahead and worked with HR to staff those classes as 2-grade splits that have not gone the triple grade route. So I'm happy to answer any questions that trustees might have.
Thank you. Do we have any comments or questions regarding this report tonight? Trustee Reynolds.
Thank you, through the chair. I just wanted to reflect and thank you for the consultations, going back to the community and talking to the families, getting some feedback from the principals as well. You know, notwithstanding the program viability report, we know that changes are coming, but certainly in the instance of Tom Thompson, you know, that report's not going to come soon enough. So I am very grateful. I'm sure the community is too, that you've reached out and had that conversation. You know, and I'm fully in support of how you've approached it. So thank you.
Thank you. We had a vanishing person on here. Okay, so do we have any other speakers to this topic tonight? Did you want to speak to it? Okay. You're vanishing too, okay. All right, well, thank you very much for your report, Associate Director Bogue. I think most parents do agree that a split is better than a triple grade, so thank you for taking into account the family's concerns. So our next item is the gradual entry to kindergarten. Superintendent Padre-Barrick, Report 16070 on page 24 of your board package. Welcome, Superintendent Padre-Barrick. Do you need someone to turn the lights off for you?
No, I think we're perfect.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Thank you. Through the chair to trustees, before you is a report that reconsiders our position on gradual entry for kindergarten, effective next school year. In the report, there's 8 considerations that was, underlied our decision. And our conclusion there in the report is to have all students, all JKs, starting the first day of school. So the first day of school is the first day of school. There is a provision, I just want to highlight in there for families that feel their children would still benefit from a gradual entry approach, that will be provided. So really it's a very open-ended, very family-friendly approach to gradual entry. If you still feel that's something that would benefit your child, we will give that schedule to schools. But our public position is now everyone starts on the first day. So any questions, I'm happy to answer.
Thank you. Any comments or questions on the ending gradual entry report for kindergarten students? Vice Chair Graves.
Through you, Chair, to Superintendent Padre-Barrick. Thank you for this. I just wanted to let you know that one of the, over the summers, that's the biggest source of phone calls is just the unknown around how gradual entry works and what the dates are and the release of all of that and work schedules and so on. So I do think this is a positive step for students to get them in a routine, and for parents so that they know and can plan around this. And with that provision, that parents are able to choose a gradual entry if they feel it would be beneficial. I think it's a win-win for all. So thanks very much.
Thank you. Trustee L. Harrison.
Thank you very much, through you, Madam Chair. Absolutely. I think it's great that parents still have that option. And I was just wondering whether the gradual entry option is going to just be available this year as a transition, or whether you foresee that option going forward. Like Trustee Graves, I do hear people wanting to start right away kind of thing, but there's always those others that may not. So
Thanks for the question. Barring any unforeseen issues, or we're going to fully support schools in this approach, we do see this as the way forward in the years to come. So it is a stepping away from gradual entry. This year, the circumstances of this year provoked us to really look at it as a position. We've been looking at it every year, and gradual entry has morphed and shortened over the years. There's been several reviews of it leading towards this, so we do see this as the new way forward.
Thank you. Trustee Gerbentz.
Hi. Trustee Gerbentz. Sorry, I'm on a bit of a delay with the live streaming. I fully support this getting rid of the gradual entry because it, as someone who has recently gone through it, it's really hard to work the schedules around for families. So I think this will be great for families.
Thank you very much. Trustee Gray.
Yes, I'd like to just echo what my trustee colleagues have said. I think it's a win-win, especially with the built-in flexibility. And so I think that this is a great report and maybe a report whose everyone has been looking for in our communities for a while. I just had one question, though. Would this bring us in line with our coterminous board and also the boards on our boundaries? So are we in step now or catching up?
This puts us in a leadership position with our coterminous board. They're staying with a gradual entry model this year. They're staying with their kind of status quo model, and they've dipped into the Tuesday PD day a little bit to start some of it. Toronto District School Board last year moved away from gradual entry as an entirety, and so they're a big board, and every board every year is reconsidering it more and more, and they're either being compressed, or a lot of boards have had senior kindergarten kids no longer doing gradual entry, which we did several years ago here. So right now we're one of the early movers on this, but I to be blunt, I expect other boards to follow.
Thank you. Trustee Harvey-Hope.
Thank you. Thank you so much for doing this. I have been in kindergarten classrooms those first few weeks where you're never too sure how many kids are actually in the class. So I think the parents will appreciate it more because then they can set up their daycare arrangements and it's done. I know years and years and years ago, we didn't have full implementation of kindergarten, everybody in the class, for 3 weeks. And I recall handing out birthday invitations for one of my children on the first day of school because it was so far into September that even though his birthday's at the end of September, that was the first time he saw his classmates. So we've gone away from that. You know, we didn't have SK. They decided that if it was your second year, you wouldn't need gradual entry, and then it was just JK, and then it was 3 or 4 days, and now it's going to be. So I think we make great strides, and with more and more children having a childcare experience before they get to school day, the gradual entry and putting it in the hands of parents, and if they have a child who they don't think can handle the full day, coming and getting them early or making personal arrangements. I've seen it happen. It works really well. So I'm happy to see us in a leadership role here. Thanks.
Thank you. Are there any other comments or questions for our speaker tonight? Seeing none, thank you very much for your report, Superintendent Fladerberg. And I'm sure that there'll be lots of families who are very happy with the new entry. Our next item is rental rates, 2016-17. Superintendent Cullen, report 16067 on page 24 of your board package. Welcome, Superintendent Cullen.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Annually, we review the costs of operating schools and increase or decrease the rental rates accordingly. These are primarily for community groups that facilitate their use of our schools through the Parks and Recreation departments at all 4 of the municipalities in Halton. We do also receive a grant from the ministry to assist in reducing those rates. I believe the grant this year is about $780,000 or $790,000. And in tonight's report, you'll see that we are recommending we therefore can provide about a 28% offset to the operating cost of those facilities, and we will then calculate the rates for the various spaces in the school. You would think that that would relate to then a 3% rate increase across the board. However, we have a couple of areas, specifically gyms, where we're correcting for some of the sizes of them. Some elementary schools are larger, smaller, double gyms, larger, smaller, et cetera. And that has actually caused a slight increase to some of the areas that will range between 5 and 10%. In fact, the elementary double gyms are going down by a little bit over 10%. So there's a correction there that we're phasing in over 2 years to get the area correct for the cost recovery. Our goal is to be cost recovery based on all the rental of the facilities. So in tonight's package, you have the history of the rebate that we've had over the years, as well as the amount that's received from the ministry. And I should also say that we estimate the volume of rentals and therefore these numbers to get us into the discount area. And if there's any money left over, i.e. any of the rebate from the ministry that's not used, for the purposes of reducing the rental rate, we actually can use that for what we call one-time needs of the rental community groups. In many cases, it's either upgrades or enhancements to a particular school site that benefits the community users more so than the school, if you will. They're the primary customer for that particular dollar amount. So you'll see we're anticipating about a $80,000 potential surplus for one-time items this year, and it gives us a bit of a cushion in case the rates or in case the rental volumes actually increase. Be happy to take any questions related to the rental rates for our upcoming school year. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any comments or questions on this report tonight? There doesn't appear to be any, so thank you very much for your report. The next item is, again, Superintendent Cullen on his capital update, report 16066 on page 26 of your board package. Superintendent Cullen.
Thank you again, Madam Chair. We have listed the reports this evening that are underway, and as usual, I will highlight the significant changes. Halton Village, the addition has started, so the contractor's mobilized and on site. That's working in an occupied school on the second floor. You recall this is an addition going on the existing first floor, and we'll now add a second floor to part of the building. The other project, the Kielburger 10-room addition for Craig Kielburger, you recall we will have some issues related to portables and location. That's underway, and the architect we met with last week is to get back to us about this time this week with some revised plans, so we'll share those as soon as they come back and keep that moving. And the other one, which I did just attempt to, and I'm not sure if that folder's active or live, there was a folder for trustees, just tried to share some photographs of Martin Street. The building is now gone. The site is leveled other than one wall. So the original front facade that was at the front of the school is still standing. So from the street, you could be slightly confused that it's still there. But literally there's a bunch of planks and beams reinforcing the wall to hold it up, and there's nothing behind it. So I did attempt to share that picture, but I'm not sure if I had the right folder. Did you get it? Okay. It shows the wall from the backside. So literally you'd be standing in about the library location of the former school, and right now it's a very flat, dirt-like field. So we're ready to turn the corner and start construction on the new building on that location. Again, happy to take any questions related to that.
Are there any comments or questions for Superintendent Cullen on his capital update? Seeing none, I have one. The Georgetown District High School, I see there's something that's been sitting here since 2010, and we're still waiting for something on a land deal with the final sign-off. Why is that still hanging around?
I was hoping everybody'd forget. No, actually that was related. It was related to the addition of the cafeteria, food school, et cetera, at Georgetown and the Field of Dreams. What happened in that project is because we've changed the footprint of the hard surface on the area, we've increased the rainwater that will run off the site. We had to make arrangements to actually manage the water as it runs off the site, so it's the stormwater management issue. The water, in fact, runs into the ravine behind the school, and we created a lovely causeway of concrete, rocks, and bricks so there's no erosion, and everything was done according to the plan there. However, that property is not the Halton District School Board property. It's actually owned by the Halton Catholic School Board. So we were directed to enter into an agreement of some sort to put an easement in place for the town. It would be a town requirement to do so. Through several conversations with the Catholic Board, they were fine with us putting it there, but when we came to getting an agreement in place, they suggested that we just buy the entire parcel. I don't know if you're familiar. They've closed the school in the area, and they suggested maybe we should just buy the entire site. And we said we need 30 feet. We don't need the entire site. So we've gone back and forth on a few different options on that. The town has since eased its requirements, so they're not insisting on, I'll say, the same level of legal certainty around that, given that we're both school boards and sit adjacent to one another. So we believe that we'll be able to clear that one shortly. And what happens is we have a letter of credit that sits on file with the town until all those conditions are cleared. And that's really the motivation for us to clean that up, is to get that that particular letter of credit back in our control as opposed to the town. So I've heard recently good news. We may be able to actually clear that one off shortly.
That is good news. Thank you. And thank you for the explanation. I see no other speakers to this, so thank you very much for your reports tonight, Superintendent Cullen. So our next item is the board report schedule update. Director Miller, report 16068 on page 29 of your board package. Director Miller.
Thank you, Chair Amos. I have a few comments about this. The first one's pretty straightforward. The Ombudsman process review we've got in there for June. We're anticipating the second board meeting in June, but it will be before the end of the school year, so it'll be in June sometime. The next one is about Program Viability Committee. It's in there as May, and in the original board report that came here, we had said that the report would come in May. But as you recall, was it last week or the board meeting before, we talked about bringing the program viability potential recommendations or alternatives to Committee of the Whole for a deeper conversation and discussion. Because of the timing of all that, it would be difficult for us to make the May, is it 18th? The second board meeting in May. May 18th board meeting, and be able to digest all that conversation at Committee of the Whole. So we're going to move that to the first board meeting in June, the Program Viability Committee report. So it'll be there for action and then voted on at the second board meeting. I think it's, we've done that because we think it's the fairest way to do it, just because of the timing and all that, and because it's for implementation for September 2017 anyway, I think it's possible to do so. There's also an omission here, and it's related to the other ones I want to talk about. You talked this evening tonight, trustees, around the special education plan. We have it there for April 20th. It should be going in April, but of course the order paper dictated that it had to be done prior to budget approval. And so that obviously will not happen April 20th, and you will be addressing that May 4th. But we have a similar issue with the reports directly above it around the operational plan. The operational plan has to be done for next year prior to budget approval, which that's not normally an issue. The issue this year is the multi-year plan. So the operational plan is to reflect the multi-year plan. So I haven't quite figured out how we'll handle that, because if the multi-year plan and the budget come in on the same date or in around the same date, it will not give us much time to do an operational. I'm not sure how we could do it. We can't really do the operational plan fully until we've got a new multi-year plan. What I'm going to suggest is we essentially carry on with our current operational plan, and after the multi-year plan is passed, we will start the development of the new operational plan during the summer, and then in first or second board meeting in September, we present that to the trustees. It would require some kind of motion from the board to allow for that. It doesn't have, the motion doesn't have to be tonight, but we need to do it fairly soon. So just think about that, because that's my preference. But I'm, if trustees have a better idea, that's for sure what we're that I would like to hear. That's it on the board reports, I think. And we'll get a date in for the multi-year plan. I imagine it's going to be either the first or second board meeting in June.
Thank you.
And then I have some more information about that in my director's report.
Trustee Collard.
I'm wondering if the motion regarding the operating plan has been as problematic as the one regarding the spec ed plan, because I can recall in previous years, former Director Uwali had similar issue with that one, and I'm wondering if it should also be under consideration for being rescinded. If so, I'm happy to write up 2 motions instead of 1.
Through you, Chair Amos, to Trustee Collard, thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other speakers to this tonight? Trustee L. Harrison.
Thank you. My question is, does the park policy posting one still need to be on the list? Because it's kind of a one-time thing that's passed now. It's October 21st. Just be good to lighten the load a little bit.
Yeah. Through you, Chair Amos, to Trustee L. Harrison. That's the list of completed ones. I'm not sure, like, no, that's just these are all the things that have been done. So we fill it in as it goes. Make sense? Okay.
Thank you. Are there any other comments or questions on this topic? Seeing none, we will now move to committee reports. Do we have any committee reports tonight? Trustee Harvey Hope.
This is one of those committee reports where it's a to be continued. We had an audit committee meeting last week. It was very productive. It was our first shot at having open doors for public session and closed session. We didn't have a private session. And a formal report will be coming in the future for the board to approve the changes to the regional internal audit plan, the internal audit plan, and the external audit plan. But one can't turn it around between Tuesday at whatever time we left the room and Friday when the package goes out. So it will take a little bit longer to generate, but we had a productive meeting, and we're working out the kinks on how to be more transparent with our public and open and closed sessions. Thanks.
Thank you. Trustee Collard.
Thank you. SEAC met last night, and we had a very productive meeting. We reviewed the spec ed plan in light of the programs, placements, and services that we currently provide, and not projecting forward to what might change next year. Managed to get through the entire plan and got significant agreement around the table about what changes needed to be made in order to have it reflective of what we are currently doing. So we did a tremendous amount of work, I think, in that meeting. We also had an opportunity to hear about the accessibility plan, and it was a very informative presentation by Mary Jane Farish and Superintendent Rob Etoff. Lots of really good conversation, lots of great questions, and a really good meeting.
Thank you. Trustee L. Harrison. This is a committee report, right?
Right. So I was just going to put this on briefly. And just report that last week we had our Halton Eco-Learning Partnership meeting, and we talked about the Green Charter, the Green Meeting Charter, which will be moving forward, so stay tuned on that. And we had a bit of a show and tell, and this is not something I picked up on my own. This, along with the other items, were cast-offs from recent fundraisers in schools, and you can imagine that from an environmental and other perspectives that these perhaps that we might be able to do better. So I was asked by the group whether through the PIC reps, trustee PIC reps, an item could be added to the PIC agenda to talk about ethical incentives for school-related fundraising and so on. because I think there are probably lots of great ideas out there that we could perhaps harness. This stuff was found in the playground not too long after the event took place, so I think that maybe it shows that these things aren't having a long-lasting impact for our students, but they do have a long-lasting negative impact on the environment. So please, for the PIC folks, I just wonder whether you think that's a reasonable, whether that's possible. Thanks.
Thank you. I'm one of the PIC trustees, as is Trustee Grubens and Chair Amos. And I don't see any problem with that. I'd love to know who threw away that headband, though, because that's awesome. I would love one of those. Silly kids. But yeah, I really, really appreciate you bringing that to our attention. I think that is good. Could you write something up for us to take to PICS to make sure that we convey the problem as eloquently as you have without headgear? Thank you.
I can loan you the headgear.
I will borrow it and take it with me.
Director Miller.
I believe that's Superintendent Potter Barracks.
I could see that, actually. Vice Chair Graves.
I wish I could be so interesting in my report. Mine is so dull in comparison. Committee of the Whole met last week. We had a budget workshop, and because we had members of the public, we moved into Committee of the Whole to pilot our new questions from the public, and I think it worked quite well. Our upcoming agenda topic is going to be budget, and will be done in Committee of the Whole, and I will start to express my I know we said we would pilot for 3 months, so I'm getting very anxious if we're going to move forward with this to get the bylaws all tightened up and put in place. So I'll be looking forward to doing that at future committee meetings.
Thank you. Trustee Collard.
Just in response to Vice Chair Graves' question about that, at the very next opportunity for discussion of that bylaw, I hope to get it passed at that level so that we can bring it to board.
Thank you. Are there any other committee reports tonight? All right, so the next item is the director's report. Director Miller.
Thank you, Chair Amos. I have a few items tonight. I don't know whether there's been a media release on this or not yet, but our modified school year calendar that had gone into the ministry has been approved. So it is as was sent in by Associate Director Bogue and so on. So and there will be a media release tomorrow. I've mentioned we already have an answer to Trustee Collard's question around the gifted programming or versus placement. It will be in the May 4th. The changes will be reflected there. Senior Manager Renzella had said that he was going to put them all together at once, and he didn't want to make changes here or there, just make them all at once. And so it'll be reflected in the May 4th. There is, I think you may have got this in your mailboxes, but there's Ontario College of Teachers has a conference called Inspiring Public Confidence Conference, and so trustees are welcome to attend. It's May 26th and 27th, which is a segue into my next part. We are looking at possibility, and Chair Amos will put something out about May 2nd being our next multi-year plan. Not a full day, an evening, just with our group.
No, that's the one with
okay.
The major group.
So the big group, May 2nd, that's a Monday evening, and then we would be back together either May 26th or 27th, if that date's amenable to people. I mean, obviously, you'll have to look at your calendars and so on. But May 2nd would be the bringing back of the larger group to just get their input around some stuff. Okay? I think that's it for me on the public side. Anything else, Dale? No, I think we're good. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Questions or comments for the director? Trustee Harvey Hope.
Okay. On one hand, you tell us about a conference on the 26th and 27th, and then on one hand, and then turn around and say you haven't yet figured out. So that's problematic. May 2nd is the first Monday of the month when 3/4 of all of our school council meetings are meeting, and I presume we may not have the program viability committee report or even knowing where that direction is going. So maybe it's not the end of the world, but I've been missing a lot of them because of things we keep scheduling on the first Monday. So I haven't been to a lot of my school council meetings this year because I haven't been able to get there because I'm doing something else board related. So that's just problematic. Perhaps we could sort out the dates. And just for future, perhaps we need to do some placeholders like in September of the year. We know we're going to do a multi-year plan because the dates have been causing quite a lot of problems as far as trying to figure out when to do them because we keep picking odd days like Sunday, Monday, or a Monday where we don't normally have, like a Monday during the day. Normally the staff are all in admin council, and so it's sort of a safe day to do other things. And in this case, we're doing it the opposite around. So just a comment.
Through Chair Amos to Trustee Harvey Hope, I recognize the irony of telling you about the conference and the multi-year plan before I even said it. That's why I said get the dates out and you can take a look, and because the conflict may be you're going to the conference, and so then maybe we have to change the date. But if you've chosen not to go to that conference and everybody's available on May 26th or 27th, then we would use that date. As for the May 2nd date, I know that's a school council evening, but we are rapidly running out of days to do these. And I would say, I know it seems bad this year, but I don't recall a year where we didn't have difficulty in finding dates in the May-June period, because there's all sorts of school events on those nights. There's graduations, commencements, student excellence. So I don't recall a year that I've been a senior admin that there has not been challenges in May and June in particular, and often April as well. So, but your point about in the calendar, when we do know that it's a big year, we probably should have spaced out some stuff. But you know, this board had a lot of big decisions to make early on in this year, and continue to do so. So.
Just to follow up on what the director said about the May 2nd, it was because that seemed to be like one of the only evenings available for an evening to able to bring people together that had the director and the associate director, and it didn't seem to involve other committees of the board that were working, and there is no perfect date.
But the big group also has people that are otherwise required to be at school councils, because we had that the last time we had that big meeting. They ended up sending other representatives.
Well, and I can address that. When we have a group that large, my experience is in this we are going to be missing people regardless of the evening we do. I think the best we can do is get the information out to them. The last time we did it, we did invite people to another evening or to provide some written input as well. So we can still ask them for written input as well.
And the other 2 days are still very tentative because something has to go out to trustees and the senior admin to see if there's availability. It was just put out there as a potential dates, but looking again at what dates are available in a very busy month and still trying to get it all done in May is very tough.
May is a 5-week month, so perhaps those dates might. The problem being the first week of the month has everything throwing into it, and May having 5 weeks means that the 5th Monday and the 5th Tuesday usually have nothing planned on them. So just to keep that in mind.
Trustee Collard.
I'm just looking at that week on the calendar. We have SEAC on the Tuesday, we have board on the Wednesday, and we have Student of Excellence on the Thursday. That is going to be one heck of a week if we also have the big group for multi-year plan on the Monday. And so I don't know what the solution is for that, but it could be a very stressful week for those of us that are out all 4 nights.
go ahead.
Through your chair, Amos, to Trustee Collard, and to all trustees, it's an excellent point. And one of the things that we've tried to do at senior admin this year is to limit the number of evenings that people are out, because they have families as well, to 2. All of us would have no choice but to be out at least 3 nights that week, and many 4. So maybe we do need to sit down and take a look at another possible date for that May 2nd. I know the following Monday, May 9th, there was some conflict as well, and but I take your advice, and we'll sit down and take a look and see if there's another date, because that would be a tough week.
I do appreciate that.
All right, so we're now up to communications from the chair, and I have a couple items. First, as we all know, the Halton Skills Competition happened a couple weeks ago, and I felt very remiss in not thanking everybody who made that event happen. It is such a huge event, and it makes such a huge impact, and all those people worked very hard to make it happen. And I'd like to go on record of saying thank you to every single person who worked that event, because all their efforts are very worthwhile, and they do make an impact on the students. And to follow up, there was another big event that happened shortly after that, which was Halton Showcase, which Trustee Pappen and I were both at, and it was emceed by Superintendent Hunt Gibbons, and the director was there as well, and so was Superintendent Salmini, and there may have been a few others, but I mean, it was an amazing evening. I did say that. Sorry. And the music is phenomenal, and I would strongly encourage you to go next year, because it just shows the talent that we have in our system. These 2 events show the different sides of our brain, and encourages students to use so many different facets of themselves. And again, I'd like to thank all the people who were involved in organizing that event, because it is a big event, and it went very seamlessly. Yesterday, I think it was yesterday, I was at the First Nations, Métis, and Inuit Youth Conference, which was held at Odainawi Public School, and there were elementary and secondary students as well as their parents there, and it was a very nice event. They had breakout sessions for the parents and for the secondary and the elementary students, and it was all about learning more about themselves. Some upcoming dates: Pilgrimwood, and I'm sharing this because Trustee Oliver isn't here. Pilgrimwood Public School turns 25 and is celebrating this Thursday, April 21st. River Oaks Public School is also turning 25 and is celebrating May the 12th. White Oaks Secondary School is turning 50 and is celebrating on May 13th and 14th. And Odainawi Public School is having their grand opening on May the 17th. No, sorry, the 19th. I can't read my own writing. Anyway, so there's a lot of great events happening in our schools, celebrating things that are happening within the schools, and I just wanted to share. So we're now up to trustee questions and comments. Do we have trustee questions and comments tonight? Trustee Daniele.
Thank you very much. Just a couple short items, if you don't mind. At our last meeting, I congratulated the grade 7s and 8s from the Sam Sherritt gifted class on winning provincials for the Destination Imagination and going to Tennessee. What we didn't know at that time is that the mixed team afterwards won a wild card spot. And I just want to highlight the importance of this mixed team. It is a group of 6 students from 5 schools: E.W. Foster, Irma Colson, W.I. Dick, Post Corners, and W.H. Warden, and they range in grades from 4 to 7. What makes them so different is not just their demographics and age range, but the learning profiles of these students. There are students in both self-contained LD and gifted classrooms, attention, short-term memory deficits, anxiety, and possible ASD, and they have worked very, very hard outside the school day to put their team together and to be given that chance to compete in Tennessee. So proud of both teams. They both worked really, really hard, and there was a fundraiser for them last night that was really quite amazing. But I just wanted to highlight that work that's being done across schools. That's not just within a single school. And kudos to the teachers that took that on, because it's a lot of extra work. And then the other thing, I don't know if anyone is aware, but this weekend is the funeral services for former Superintendent Yarrow Banks' father, Robert. Director Miller was kind enough to print out a couple copies of the details. There's visitation Friday afternoon and Friday evening with a funeral on Saturday, and I do have those available if somebody would like them. Thank you very much, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Trustee Gerbentz.
Wanted to give a shout out to Robinson's drum line that they were down in Dayton, Ohio. And they did an absolutely fabulous performance, and it is on Facebook. If you go and check out Robinson Drumline, you can see it is absolutely amazing to watch. And again, congratulations to them.
Thank you. Trustee Gray.
Yes, thank you, through the chair. I just wanted to make mention, and I could probably be supported and helped by Trustee Daniele, but on the 9th of April, a number of the trustees made their way to the Central West OPSPA meetings hosted by the Grand Erie Board, and after the meetings we had a tour of the Woodland Cultural Center and, more importantly, the Woodland Residential School. It was a very meaningful day for those trustees in attendance. So thank you very much for that, and also want to give kudos to Trustee Daniele for her magnificent leadership of that meeting. Second quick point is the Halton Hills School Community Council will be meeting on the 28th later this month, and I wanted to make mention that Councillor Jane Fogel from Halton Hills will be present to talk about the Halton Hills Bike Challenge. That's great kickoff will be taking place earlier that same week from Ethel Gardner Public Schools. So also in attendance we will have Maureen McLaughlin from the Halton Food for Thought. So it's going to be a great meeting. Looking forward to seeing all the parents out to that. And finally, from the Halton Learning Foundation, I was at the board meeting earlier this week, and there was great kudos at that board meeting for the great support from the trustees here at the board for all of the various initiatives of the foundation. And it was asked that I mention for everyone in attendance here tonight that the elimination of the barriers fund has gone from $200 per child to $250 per child, and that's a nice increase and should be very, very helpful for our students. So that's the report for tonight. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Trustee L. Harrison.
Thank you very much.
No hat?
No hat. No hat for this one. Firstly, just congratulations to Blake Clock, Food and Nutrition, Grade 9 Food and Nutrition classes. Teachers Art Hilson and Michelle Millington worked with students to do a fundraiser for our Syrian newcomers. They raised over $1,100 that will be donated to the Welcome Center for school supplies. And so many kids had great cookies that day too. This is Earth Week, so happy Earth Week, everyone. And along with Earth Week, there is a 30 by 30 challenge, which is spend 30 minutes for 30 days in nature and reap the benefits. So I challenge you all to sign up for the 30 by 30 challenge. Thanks.
Thank you. Are there any other trustee questions or comments tonight? I'm just going to share something I forgot. Vice Chair Graves, Associate Director Bogue, and I judged at the Halton Public Speaking Competition, which was held at White Oak Secondary School. And the level of competition and the subject of speeches was just amazing. I mean, I wish I had that type of skill when I was speaking, and these kids just blew us away. And it made it very tough to judge because there were so many great qualities in all the different speeches. But in the junior division, the first place went to Vishal Vijay from Oakville, Trafalgar. Second was Rose Kaivandi from Hayden Secondary, and third was Natanya Olasanya from Iroquois Ridge. And in the senior division, first place was, oh, it's not going the other way. Bryn DeChastelin from Georgetown District High School. Second place was Bertina Liu from White Oaks, and third place was Kishar Mataji from White Oaks. And again, there was a great number of students from all across the system, and it was a great representation and very difficult decisions, but congratulations to everybody who competed. And seeing no other speakers, could I have a motion to adjourn? Trustee L. Harrison, seconded by Trustee Gray. Just a minute. All those in favor? You want to abstain?
I want to stay.
That passes unanimously. Thank you very much and have a wonderful evening.